Gimenez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Katko, and my friend Representative Correa for bringing up this important bill before the committee today. America faces a two-front war, one along our southern border and another one along our maritime borders. There have been millions of unvetted migrants crossing into the United States. More fentanyl is pouring into the country. Countless individuals are being trafficked for profit, and lives are lost when many embark on a treacherous journey. Our Customs and Border Protection, the United States Coast Guard, and counterparts have worked relentlessly to ensure our national security interests are protected. These components have been able to carry out critical missions with the assistance of the Department of Homeland Security's Joint Task Forces. Before the creation of these Joint Task Forces, DHS components worked together in the field, but they relied upon a network of informal personal relationships and overlapping priorities versus a clear framework that directed regional efforts. In 2014, DHS established 3 joint task forces to serve as a touch point to the interagency across its joint operating areas. The goal was really simple: to establish a streamlined and unified structure that prioritized security operations and investigations against transnational criminal organizations. And in 2016, this committee passed a temporary 6-year authorization for the Joint Task Forces. In the maritime security environment, Joint Task Force East leads the coordination of DHS enforcement efforts to plan and implement enhanced counter-network operations directed at disrupting transnational criminal organizations, as well as drug and human smuggling efforts. The task force, led by the United States Coast Guard, is composed of members from Customs and Border Protection, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. The task force operates heavily in and around my district, which contains Key West, which has seen a dramatic increase in migrant encounters this year. South Florida has recently seen an uptick in interdictions and apprehensions of migrants. The Florida Keys and the Miami-Dade County are top destinations for human trafficking, drugs, and weapons. I recently visited with Border Protection agents in my district to hear firsthand about the challenges their agency has faced, as well as their steadfast attempts to safeguard our national security and our interests. In South Florida, there have been 3,000 migrant encounters, and the United States Coast Guard has reported more than 400% increase in at-sea interdictions of migrants attempting to cross into the United States. It's important that components of DHS are working together in a unified way to confront this national security risk. The reauthorization allows for the critical work JTF East has been doing to continue through to 2024. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Katko, for bringing this important bill before the committee. And I also want to thank again my colleague, Representative Correa, on his efforts. While he represents a very different maritime border on the West Coast, he knows that we cannot take maritime security for granted. Thank you very much, and I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, you have
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate giving me an opportunity to speak about this issue, and frankly to say that illegal immigration is being caused by climate change is ludicrous. The reason that we have millions of people crossing the southern border is because of the ridiculous, totally asinine policies of the Biden administration that have incentivized people to come and cross the border because there's nobody stopping them. I've spoken to many. I've been to the southern border 3 times. I've spoken to many Customs and Border Protection agents. Not one of them said, "Gee whiz, climate change is causing all these people to come here." They've all said it was a change in policies. And so let's not stick our head in the sand and think that it's climate change that's causing the problem. It is the policy of the Biden administration. They actually want this to happen. They've incentivized people to come, and they're coming. Not only are people coming, but also all the drugs that are flowing through the southern border. They're killing hundreds of thousands of our citizens, and the Biden administration refuses to do anything about it. The international drug cartels down the southern border have declared war on the United States, and they're killing thousands of American citizens, and we do nothing about it. It has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with climate change, and I yield back.
Mr. Chairman. Gentleman yield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start off by thanking Mr. Meyer for introducing this critical resolution of inquiry that strives to provide much-needed transparency and accountability and sheds light on the current humanitarian crisis happening at our southern border. Border encounters have increased more than 500% since 2020. U.S. Customs and Border Protection reports indicate that current fiscal year, they have seen almost 2 million migrant encounters on our southern border with more than 500,000 getaways. And by the way, they also tell me that there's at least another 500,000 they don't know anything about, that they don't know they got away. So that's 1 million people that have gone through our border. We have absolutely no idea who they are, where they're going, or what they're doing in the United States. Almost a year and a half later, President Biden still has not been to our southern border to witness for himself the devastation that his disastrous policies are causing. And despite all this, his appointed border czar, the Vice President Harris, has the audacity to declare the border secure, as we're on pace for over 2 million crossings for the first time ever. Instead of carrying out the laws as passed by Congress and acting in accordance to their oath to the Constitution, President Biden and DHS Secretary Mayorkas have been focused on only one thing: on rolling back the previous administration's successful efforts. This absence of urgency and action demonstrates their lack of commitment to securing our southern border and restoring our national security. Policies such as the termination of Remain in Mexico, failing to bolster law enforcement personnel, and failing to expand Title 42 have all contributed to millions of unvetted migrants crossing into the United States. The influx of fentanyl and fentanyl-related substances, further fueling the overdose epidemic we are currently facing as a nation, weapons falling into the hands of hardened criminals, young children being trafficked, and billions in profits to the cartels, billions in profits to them. This administration has proven time and time again they are not committed to protecting our southern and maritime borders, as well as the lives of Americans who reside along them. In fact, their actions indicate a willful disregard for the security of America and Americans. DHS and current administration officials have not only abandoned their commitment to protecting Americans, but they have also failed to be transparent with the American people and Congress. They have neglected their duties by failing to convey critical information as it relates to who is entering the country, the total number of illicit narcotics pouring in, the policies that they're using to track criminal organizations engaged in drug smuggling and human trafficking. This has made every community across America a border community, including mine in Miami, negatively impacted by the crisis right here on the southern border. The safety of our communities, as well as the well-being to our families and the security of our nation, are all at risk, and the American people are starting to respond. Today, we continue to confront the growing threats posed to the United States by malign actors that seek to encroach on our national security. We have an important duty to acknowledge and put forth sensible policy measures that will provide the necessary transparency to craft a coherent border policy. Policy that is bold, that is strong, and puts the safety of American lives first. Policy that grants our hardworking Customs and Border Protection agents and our local law enforcement agents the resources they need to keep our families and our communities safe by stopping any drugs and illegal weapons from being smuggled into the country. The lives of hundreds of thousands of Americans depend on these policies. And by the way, I just looked it up. We lost 300,000 people in all of World War II. 300,000 Americans lost their lives during World War II. Every year, we're losing over 100,000 people to drug overdoses, many of which come from fentanyl. So yeah, this is a crisis. It's a declaration of war by those cartels on America, and this administration refuses to do anything about it. Thank you, and I yield.